Well, it's kind of a new season. We lost 5 guys. So I think the most important part as to how far we can go, we want to get further than we were last year, although I want to commend last year's team for pushing toward the end. We were hurt and sick latter part of the conference schedule last year, and at the end they put it back together, and I think you saw their true team. Very close to beating a very good team that's won their last 2 games in the NCAA tournament against top 15, 20, top 10 teams. So, happy where we got. We want to get better, but knowing that our whole goal is to win the NCAA title, always is every year. It's a dream. It's a dream for everybody, though. I want to be part of that conversation. It's kind of the way I always think. And you happy with performances as you ride to that end, if you can get there. So this year we lost 5 players, all contributors, all been big contributors for the last 3 years. So I think the big question for this year's team is not so much talent, it's not so much experience, but it's more about how they'll play together, the chemistry that they can develop. Last year's team had a great deal of chemistry. And this year's team with a bunch of new players will have to develop that chemistry. I think we'll be okay talent-wise. I don't see a big drop-off there, but there is a big drop-off in the chemistry we developed over the last 3 years. And so we'll start today working on that, and hopefully, we'll be in the mix of everything when we get to the end of the road. And if you know what that looks like, then I need to hire you and put you on my staff, because I don't. So we'll see what happens. And I know this, the thing I do know, these young men will give you everything they got. They'll play for Marshall, not themselves. They'll play for Marshall, and they give you everything they got. And I'm satisfied with that. And if we get a few breaks, don't have any bad breaks, then I expect a pretty good outcome, and we'll see how well that is, how good that is. And the way we play, I don't want to de-emphasize rebounding. It's very important. I think the big stat that you look off of that, though, is not the number of rebounds, but the number of points, second chance points. If those are low, rebounding stats really neither here nor there. So it's really the second chance points that rebounding can help eliminate, but sometimes you get 6 rebounds on the same possession. It's 2 points. And when you look at the stats, it looks like they overwhelmed you with rebounding. It really didn't. So you have to kind of break down rebounding stats. They're not a true indicator as to what it is. It's basically what they score off of those rebounds. So, we're probably challenged in that area in that we lost Ryan, who's way up there in the stats here, and Terrence, who was one of our stronger rebounders. And obviously, we're going to have to manufacture some stats there, but I think Adine will lead that charge, and we got several people competing with that other inside berth that they'll do their job. I trust them, and I know that they don't want to let their teammates down. They don't want to let Marshall down, and they don't want to let our fans down. So they'll get in there and compete, and we'll get our share. When you bring a young man from overseas, and he's never played in the States, it takes about 2 years. And his was a year and a half, and he's fulfilling what I thought he would be from his play and the films that I watched over there. Very talented. And all 3 of these guys, we're going to ride with these 3. And, they've got to step up. And they'll tell you, I tell them every day, y'all got to make me a good coach. It's not about me. It's about them. I'm going to try to help them. I'll do my part. But in the end, these 3 have to step up. They have to lead on the floor. They have to lead in the locker room. They have to lead how we represent ourselves in the community and everything else. And that's a great experience for a young man. That's what makes sports great. That's why it helps them as people. If they assume those responsibilities and they do the things that can promote this program, make it successful on and off the court, they've learned a very valuable life lesson that if they'll practice it once they leave the court and leave this program, it'll help them be successful. And then the more alumni that we can put out like that, come back and support our program, it grows. I've seen it in my high school program. I've seen it at the pro level when it's continued, like San Antonio, where they have that type of rapport among their players and players that accept responsibility of, one, knowing that they're a big part of the game and that their play is going to determine the outcome, two, allowing me to have the opportunity to coach them and have my experience help them. You know, some people don't do that well. But these young men and the young men we had last year all did that. They allow me to help them, and in turn, they make me a good coach. And so I think, you know, things are looking good. Our depth chart's filling up a little bit. This will be the first year, really, that everybody on the team was somebody we recruited. And so, no, I want to, again, I don't want to override or not give enough credit to the very first team that turned a lot of things for this program, especially attitudes and image of the team. Second year, coming in third when they were picked 11th. Having a chance last year, we overcame Stevie had a back spasms toward the end of the year, and we stayed sick. It was like one right after the other toward the end. They didn't hold that as an excuse, and they came out competing in the tournament. And like John said, a couple shots here or there, either way, we could have done something Marshall hadn't done since the Mid-American Conference. And I don't want to compare, but the top 6 or 7 in Conference USA is pretty good basketball. The last 3 years, UAB, middle, have won first-round games. So I don't think you'd see that in the Southern Conference. But so program stepping in the right direction. And, you know, I got that little saying up there. It said, Snoopy carrying on Charlie Brown's back. Said, you know, it's not where you're going, it's who you go with. I choose to go with these guys. So I think we're in good shape, and Marshall will be proud of what we do. Well, I don't want to play any sleepers. I want to play people who are competitive, are going to be winners. You know, that doesn't do well for my resume, but at the same time, it does well for the team. It makes us tougher. It hardens us up for the end of the year. It gets harder and harder to do that every year because as they get better, the Power 5 conferences, the less they want to play us. You know, they don't pay people to come up and get beat. So we have it a little bit harder to find those teams. But I'll promise you that we're looking. You know, our whole goal was to give you a good competitive game every night, the best we can. The thing about John that I like is that he lets you help him as much as I can. But then he seeks it himself to get better in other ways. I mean, that's a mark of a guy that really is hungry, is that he takes what's given him, and that's us, but then he goes out and finds what we can't provide to make him even better. And, you know, I learned a lot from him, just how he seeks out ways to make himself better. And I don't want to take credit for that. I want him to get the credit. Certainly we do our part, what we can here, the entire staff. But he goes beyond that, and that's he does what it takes to find what can make him the very, very best he can be. And I want to congratulate that and make sure people understand that's a commendable trait. And so, you know, he's academically one of the tops, was the best returning player, only starting Conference USA player coming back first team, and by far the best academic on that. So he reminds me of Mike in that regard, not me, in that he competes in all arenas. And that's a remarkable trait. You know, it's untested because you know me, I get a little stingy on the minutes, probably too much. And, you know, I'm used to playing 5 guys, and I know I was like John. I didn't want to come off the floor. You know, you had to almost drag me off there to get me off. So Our depth is untested. I like our athleticism. I like our activity. If you've watched early in the workouts that we've had, our activity and speed, is picked up. It's much quicker, faster team. So that allows us to do more things. And because the depth doesn't really drop off real hard, I'm hoping that I can manage to get beyond mine and spread the depth out a little bit and see if we can't, if I can't look at John and say, John, just sit down for a little bit so that we can keep him ready for the end of the game and we can continue pressuring the entire game. We'll see what happens. CJ, I don't worry too much about. He'll tell me when he's tired. Knothead over here doesn't do that. So you got to know your players and their personalities, and that's it. All of them, like I said, all of them are good, great young men who give me their best. So I'm not too worried about this year's team not coming prepared and not really just extending what's inside them, get it out, put it out there.